Just brought home my latest find. This is a mid-century dresser. Not sure who made it. I couldn't find any maker's mark in it. And it's in rough shape. I'd say most of the damage is on the top, especially this area here. And there's lots of scratches going across the grain. Hopefully I can get those out, but probably not. At least not completely. And the finish is in really bad shape, so I'll be refinishing the entire thing. I do have the other two drawer pulls. They are in, I think, this drawer. Yeah, they're in there. First thing I'm going to do is to scrape off the finish. But first, there are some little bits of loose veneer on the piece that I want to glue down before I scrape it. That way, if I get any glue on the surrounding surface, then it'll get scraped off when I scrape off the finish, instead of it going into the bare scraped wood. And for this, I'm just going to use some super glue. That'll work just fine. And I'll wear a glove so I hopefully don't glue my fingers to the wood. And spray some accelerator to get it to dry quicker. Okay, that worked. The finish on this looks pretty crispy, so I'm hoping it'll scrape off easily. Okay, it's time to scrape the top, and hopefully this goes as well as the drawers, which were really easy. So the top is all scraped, and after I scraped it, I sanded it to get anything that was left off the top and just try to clean it up a little bit more because it's in terrible shape. So I used 100 grit sandpaper on an orbital sander, and 100 grit is coarser than what I would usually go with, especially on a veneer, but this is in such bad shape, I felt like it was called for, and I was really careful not to sand through the veneer. So now I want to apply some oxalic acid to the top and see if I can get rid of that black stain. Okay, it's the next day. Let's take a look and see how the oxalic acid did. Well, that looks a lot better. There's still a little bit of the black mark left, but it's pretty hard to see, and it's way better than it was, so that worked well. To get these concave sections on the front, I'm going to use one of these scraper blades here and this scraper, and that should take care of those areas. So all of the scraping and sanding is now done. And I sanded most of it with 120 and then 180. Except for the drawer fronts, I just used 180 on those because I didn't really need the 120. They're in pretty good shape. Most of this piece is walnut veneer, except for some of these sections on the front. This is not walnut veneer. I don't know what it is, some kind of a solid whitish wood that was colored at the factory to look more like walnut. If I wipe this down with some naphtha, you can see how much lighter these pieces are than, let's say, the drawer front. To get that closer to the rest of the piece, I'm going to use some Candlelight gel stain. Time to start adding some clear coat, and I'm going to start with shellac, clear shellac, and then once that dries, see if I want to add anything else over that. But it's not ideal weather conditions for this, but hopefully it works out okay. So I left the shellac overnight to dry, and to my surprise, it dried just fine, even though it was cold and wet out. So now I need to address a few spots where the veneer needs repair, like this spot right here along the back edge. And instead of trying to patch a piece of veneer in there, I'm just going to use one of these hard fill sticks and melt it in there. I could use a piece of veneer here, and I've done that a lot in the past, but lately I preferred this method. Sometimes it actually is easier to blend it in, and it will be less obvious than actually trying to match a piece of veneer to the top. And then once it's dry, I can just smooth it out. Okay, so that looks a little bit too dark. It is at the back edge, so it probably would never really get noticed, and it sort of blends in with some of the darker areas in the grain, but I'm just going to take a lighter color and melt some of that in here to help blend it into this lighter area on this end. Okay, and then now I can spray a little bit of shellac just over this area, again to help blend it in, to help blend it in, to help blend it in a little bit more, so it will all have the same sheen. Okay, now I've got this one here to fix, and this might be a bad idea to try to use this here just because it's vertical. And this might just want to drip down, not sure. But I'm going to give it a shot. I'm hoping this tape might help to keep it from dripping off. Well, I don't like the color, so let me try to find a different one. No, I'm not liking that. Try this one. I think I need to get rid of this lighter color here. Okay, I think I need new batteries for this. Be right back. Okay, I got new batteries. Let's try this again. So now if we pull back a little bit and look at it from the angle and the height that people will actually be seeing it from, I think it looks pretty good. Blends in pretty well. It's another snowy day. It's been a couple of days since I put the shellac on, and it seems to be good and dry now. I was a little worried that it wouldn't dry properly because it's so cold and wet out here, but seems fine. But the surface feels just a little bit rough, and also the sheen is a little uneven in places, so I'm going to buff it out a little bit with some wool lube and some fine steel wool. And I think the shellac looks great on its own. I wasn't sure whether I was going to put some lacquer over this, but I think it's fine just as it is. So you may have noticed that I haven't refinished the legs yet on this. And that's because I'm going to remove the legs and then see if I can use this piece not as a dresser, but as a, I'm not sure what you'd call it, maybe a credenza underneath a TV. So I have a pretty large TV in my house and it's hanging on a wall. So I was thinking this piece might work well as a table underneath, or a credenza or whatever underneath the TV. But I won't know for sure until I see it in there where it's going to go. Okay, the legs are off, and I got off that apron piece, that little piece of trim going along the bottom. And now I just need to bring it in and see if it'll work. If it looks ridiculous, then I'll either make a base for it or put the legs back on and it'll be a dresser again. But hopefully it'll work. And I'm just going to try to put it directly on the floor, just as it is, just resting on these pieces on the bottom. I don't have a lot of space to work with underneath the TV, so I'm trying to avoid putting another base on it that'll raise it up, because then it might not fit. So hoping it'll look okay just as it is. Oh, hi. I didn't see you there. But since you're here, I'd like to say thanks for watching. This is my 100th video, and I wanted to do something special, so I decided to come out from behind the camera and say thanks for watching. And stay tuned for more videos coming up on my channel. Thanks. Now back to wiping. Well, here it is. I think it actually works pretty well in this spot. It doesn't look odd to me. I was afraid it might look weird without the legs, but I think it looks good.